Welcome to D&D Declassified.
I'm Nathan.
I'm Philip.
I'm Jacob, and today we'll be talking about your first encounter. And some of the topics which we'll cover in this episode are what is CR and what that means, also what is initiative, and tips and tools that you can use to help keep track of initiative and other stuff that you have to remember as a DM that you can sometimes get confused about. We'll cover terrain, where the encounter is taking place and what that can have, what effect that can have on your encounter. Combat, just some rules that we think are handy to remember. Solo versus Horde and how you're going to run that. And the differences that can bring and how to help streamline that kind of combat. Party composition, because that will have an effect on how you balance your encounters. Some parties aren't balanced and you'll have to take note of that. Also how to pace your encounters, because sometimes when you run an encounter it will be too slow, and we'll give you some tips and tricks to help speed that up, and sometimes it's going too fast, so we'll have some help to slow that down, keep a nice pace.
Yeah, cool.
What is CR? So basically what you're looking at with CR, if you do a bit of research online, it's basically 1/4 a goblin. So 1/4 goblin would be able to take on a level 1 character. That's the baseline of how to break it down. So for a party of 4 at level 1, you take on 4 goblins at 1/4. Scale it up as you go. So 4 level 4 players will be able to take on 4 level 1 CR1 characters. It's a little bit of math. It's not too hard, but yeah, if you keep in your head, 1/4 is equivalent to 1 a PC or player character at level 1. So that's what you're looking at for the math side of it. Balancing that with your party, you can put in a level 1 CR, and your 4 level 1 party members would be able to take that down. Or should be able to, but then you take into account, as we said, it will be magical items will make that encounter easier.
Magical items, skills, abilities that you may have added in or homebrewed, changed. Also, this is on the assumption that your party is well rested, so they are at max strength. If they aren't if they've lost half their abilities, they're not going to be at full strength. Just keep that in mind. And also keep in mind that the higher level you go, the more imprecise it becomes. So use it as a guideline and not as a hard rule. It's okay if you're a party of 4 at level 5 goes up against a CR6 or 7 if you feel that they can do it.
If they've got magic items or they're competent, you've seen them battle, they're at full strength, they're well rested, they've got potions to counter, you want to give them that fight or perhaps flight maneuver. It's good to throw a few higher ones in there, but just keep in mind the leveling of, the back of your mind, 1/4 to 1. Anything else?
That's all. That's fine. Just when you're working with encounters.
I'd also like to mention you can go to D&D Beyond. They have an encounter generator there. You can throw a creature in there and it'll port over your party if you've created in D&D Beyond, and it'll show you whether it's a deadly, whether it's an easy encounter, medium. So there is that. There's also Kobold Fight Club. There's a few online places you can go to that'll do the calculating for you. So we'll put those in links below in the description, and you can check those out. There's a few tools available online that will help you with this. But as a general rule of thumb, 1/4 to 1.
Now we'll move on to the topic initiative. So this is pretty much how you do your initiative. You might have, say, 4 goblins. You might have 4 separate initiatives for the goblins, or you might do them universal initiative for them as well. So it's how you run your encounter. I often put, if they're the same creature, they use the same initiative unless there's a special creature like a goblin chieftain. I would give them a unique initiative or 2+2 initiative to whatever the goblins roll, because they would always move first, and that makes more sense for leadership creatures.
It does. There's also things out there, initiative trackers. You can find boards, like peg boards to do it. I've seen people have got bits of pegs actual posted up. You can find, I'll just reach over and grab, I've got on my table like trackers like this that show each individual player, and then I have black skulls for each of my enemies. There's a million different ways you can do initiative tracking. Whiteboard, use your phone if you're the DM. There's a heap of different ways to track initiative, but like Phil said, generally if you're doing a massive battle, you will lump squadrons into one initiative. If you're doing a major, like a not as big but a higher CR creature with lower CR creatures, you'd have them separated.
Yeah.
But the general rule will be, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot easier for you for those long encounters, because you might have, say, 10 goblins. If each of them have their own initiative, it's like, is it Goblin 1? Is this Goblin 1? Because
it's just going to bog up combat and slow it down.
Yeah.
And if you group them up, it certainly increases the pace at which you can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are pros and cons to it.
Yeah.
I mean, the con would be they're all going against you, and if you're in low hit points and it's their turn, you've got 4 goblins around you, they're all going to get a hit, so you're obviously going to go down. But at the same time, you're all going to get your go after they've had theirs. So it's a bit of one versus the other.
And
if you go individually,
move after you do your stuff as well. If they clumper up, fireball,
they're gone. It has its pros and cons, but like we said, for pacing side of things, if they're the same creature, you got 6 skeletons, put them all on one initiative tracker, the lich that's controlling them goes on another, all your players have one initiative tracker for each of them, and combat is a lot more fluid. If you go individual for each skeleton, you are going to be, was that skeleton 1, was that skeleton 2, and it's going to slow you down, it's going to slow the party down.
And they'll get confused as well, because they won't know which skeleton's in front of them as well. Because like, was that 6 last turn or 5? Like,
Also, while it's important to keep track of your different initiatives, because they're different monsters most of the time, and at the same time they're going to have different hit points. Skeleton 1's going to be damaged, whereas Skeleton 2's not. And if you get those confused... it's gonna change combat, because Skeleton 1 should have died way sooner, but the damage for him may have gone to a different one, and that's really annoying.
But, I mean, you're gonna need to even with initiative, you're still gonna need to know what skeleton is what. If you've got 6 skeletons, you need to know what one's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. But if they all go at the same time, it just speeds up that combat side of things.
So, like hit points, I often do left to right. So number 1 to number 6. So the left one to the right one.
I often do that as well. But I'll often mark, number them.
If you use miniatures, you can just put a die next to them. For like D6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or you can put like a special marking on them.
Or just the sticker. Like you can get one of those like button stickers and just pop that.
Etsy have a heap of different trackers for which miniature it is. So check on Etsy if you want to pay money out for that kind of thing. But if you're not doing that, and if you're just doing, I've got skulls sometimes I'll use as a miniature.
Sticky notes.
Sticky notes, whatever.
Page,
whatever works, whatever keeps you flowing fast.
Now we'll be talking about terrain and the effect that can have on an encounter. Well, it can have a lot of effects, because terrain, you might have special gimmicks like a sand pit or lava.
Terrain will also give you the generation of whether you're in a snow, lava, a biome, whatever biome you're in, will generate what kind of monster you've got.
Which will change the kind of monsters you'll be facing, because you might find trolls in like a snow biome rather than a forest. They're more common there. So just keep that in mind, because it opens up the different kind of monsters your party can encounter there. But also it can change how difficult certain encounters are.
100%.
Are the monsters taking advantage of height? Is it going to take an action to like climb up
cliff face,
some elevation?
Is it swampy, so you're moving at half speed because the terrain's, it's difficult terrain?
Difficult terrain.
Tree cover.
will it do damage if they're not careful?
Yep.
Is the enemy going to be taking advantage of some facts? Because it might come across as an easy encounter, but how you play the terrain can completely change that. So just keep that in mind.
If you've got a water, for instance, there's a river and you're playing, a water entity that can grab people and pull them underwater and start drowning them. A low CR water creature can completely wipe a party if you've got 4 of them that are dragging people under the water.
Is it their favoured terrain?
Is it their favoured terrain? The same as what, a ranger will get their favourite type. Monsters still, like any creature in the world, you've got...
There are going to be some terrains that minimises a monster's weakness while maximising their strengths. Water combat is a great one. I'm glad you brought it up. Water combat is sluggish because not only do you move at half speed, you're on a timer because you can only hold your breath for so long. There are rules to calculate how long you can. But
Weapons.
also
weapons,
you're at disadvantage to attack.
With certain ones. It's just weird.
Certain spells, if you're playing it like that, if you cast a lightning bolt underwater, is it going to fry the party? Because water's really conductive.
Well, if the spell's verbal, there's your breath of water.
Yeah.
Just sacrifice your breath to say that. As a DM, we've talked about 0 sessions before. It's a handy thing to remember, water combat and how you handle water combat, to give that a little mention in that 0 session.
Water combat's just one. There's a heap of other areas where you can do combat. Quicksand. Are they doing... Is it in the sky? What happens if one of them falls off? These are in terrains that you'll probably encounter further into the campaign if you have them there. But just keep in mind the effect that they can have on how difficult an encounter can be.
Especially lava, because lava will kill even the most seasoned adventurer. The damage output of lava is astronomical. Falling from heights can do the same thing. I don't know if any of your Critical Role fans, but there's a famous part where one of the members jumped off a cliff and said, "We are a golden god," and changed into a goldfish and splattered. Terrain is very, very fun for a DM to play with, and it can totally change a scenario up. If you're on ice, you can break the ice and change it into ice water.
If people get trapped under the ice, it's a whole new encounter.
Exactly. So use it to your advantage if you're a DM. As a player, be mindful of where you're treading, because a good DM will use terrain to their advantage.
Also, players can use it to their advantage. So the same works for them. They can turn a hard encounter into an easy encounter by abusing or taking advantage of the terrain. I know that I have by pushing people into lava, and that completely eased up a combat encounter.
There's also spells that modify the earth.
With
and
what you said with the water one, destroy food and water. There goes the river. There goes its one saving grace.
Exactly. So as a player, you have the ability to use terrain in your favour. Good point. Terrain's quite a fun topic to think about, both as DM and player. So don't ever discount where you're standing on terrain. So now we're going to have a bit of a chat about combat versus social encounters. So what we mean by this is, let's say you come up against a bandit on the road. They're trying to hold you up. They've got a crew behind them, and you're able to talk your way out of it. So that combat scenario that was originally built has turned into a social encounter. You don't always have to fight. There might be a merchant who is actually out to steal your gold and swindles you, and that conversation you were having in the middle of a town has now turned into a chase scene and into a combat encounter because he's led you down an alleyway to the Thieves Guild. Combat versus social is an amazing tool in D&D. It can change the flow on a table. It can... some people love social encounters. We've got a couple of people that really thrive on the going to the library, talking to the librarian, finding out the knowledge and doing the social side,
books,
going through books and finding out the lore of the world. We've got other people who are, I don't want to read a book, I want to stab, you know.
They're not there to read, they're there
Table
to kill.
flip.
Yeah, table flip, I want to kill something. Exactly. So always keep in mind as a DM, you can turn any combat encounter into a social and any social into a combat. But don't forget to add both. Because flavour is what D&D's about.
Also, don't forget, it's okay if some encounters can't turn into the other.
Oh,
Sometimes you can't convince someone to, like, come down, and that's okay. Just make sure...
Dragons are a good example of that. You're not going to be like, deal dragon. No. It's hard
it's
to...
probably going to... Yeah, dragons. It's probably going to be awfully difficult to convince the dragon to move there.
Yeah.
Instead of killing it because it's terrorizing the local village. It might not want to budge. If you decide it's not impossible, give it a high DC. In other...
But that could be also an interesting combat encounter later, because it might be like, I'll leave this town, but I'll leave the capital that you came from.
Yeah,
is now my new hunting ground.
Yeah, exactly. Don't forget to mess with your players if you're a DM. Look, I'm a big fan of social stuff turning into combat. A big plan of planting seeds with things that my players have run into. So this person that they've talked to or travelled with that was taking notes on them, they don't know what the hell was happening, and they still haven't run into that encounter side of it, but they know somewhere someone has been taking notes on them. They've had a conversation, they've been told, just piss off, I don't want anything to do with you, leave me be, and they're like, why are you here? I know why they're there.
What have we done? And they like keep pushing. Obviously, if someone came up to you and wouldn't leave you alone, like, why are you mad with us? Why are you mad with us? Obviously, there's going to be a certain point where you're like, alright, let's throw down. You won't leave, so I'm going to make you leave. Or your players might fumble a conversation, or they might be new to an area, and I was like, wow, I really like... They might compliment the wrong thing, because it might be really offensive in that culture.
Magic might be outlawed, and they might throw a bit of magic over it.
We come from this kingdom, and we love this king, and like 20 years ago, that king
overthrew.
And they're like,
there's a lot of fun things you can do with social encounters and combat encounters. Don't be afraid to play with the both of them. If you need any ideas, message us. We're happy to help.
Combat is social, always amusing as well, especially with bandits, because sometimes they're like, we didn't like our leader, we're fine to be like, peace-loving people now, you killed, Jeff.
Yeah, we're only doing it because the town was razed by giants and we can't get any food. Our town's now occupied by giants. If you can kill the giants, we can leave robbing the road and we can be back in our hometown picking up the pieces. But you don't know that. You didn't talk to them, you just killed them, and now not only is their town being razed by giants, but now they've got no men left in there to try and stop
local
them.
militia.
There's a reason everyone on that road is doing what they're doing. There's a reason everyone in the town is doing what they're doing. Don't forget to ask the questions, because a good DM will have a story. If you kill them, you don't know their story.
Sometimes bandits are bandits, but it's certainly nice to reward them for being diplomatic.
I'd prefer to turn diplomacy is, and I'm not talking about the bard, singing his way out of everything and having sex with everything. That's not what we're...
Have they de-escalated a situation by being non-threatening? Alright, well, what can we do to get past safely? Because the bandits might just want money. Give them money, come to an agreeable price. No one has to die. They're happy, you're happy.
And then later on you might want to find where they're camped and then take their money and let them know how it feels to be victimised while they're sleeping. There's a lot of fun. We could go on about that for a while.
Now the topic we're on to is solo versus horde. When you are running an encounter, certain things to think of before you do it is it a solo, so one creature versus your 4 party members, or is it a horde kind of thing? So is it, say, 3, as you said before, wolves kind of thing going first, and then do they, if the going gets tough, do they get more people, or do they retreat? Is also kind of something
Yeah.
you can work. Horde
So-
versus solo.
Something that we'll get into after this one is pacing. So solo versus horde, the main thing you want to look at with this is on the pacing side of things. Your solo character, if your party have gone against a solo character and they're really beating it up, it might be worth bringing more in.
Yeah.
If you're doing a horde, pardon me, the thing I'd recommend is, as we mentioned with the initiative,
Yep.
with the initiative tracking, is grouping your parties together. So one captain with 6 men underneath him are initiative tracker 1. Captain, 6 people underneath him, initiative tracker 2. That's if you're doing a massive battle. If you're coming down to the smaller you get, the less initiative trackers you'd need on groups, and you'd more then break them into individuals. So for the horde, it really is about picking the number of tracking that you want on that horde.
How many monsters will be allocated to an initiative?
Yeah.
So you're not having 40 initiatives on the same page or 20. Or,
Yeah.
Keeping it condensed.
Yeah. And then don't be afraid to, as a DM, completely wipe out one that might likely survive to keep the pacing going on your battle. Because if you're doing a horde battle, it can eat up a lot of time.
Yep.
We've had battles go 2 or 3 sessions where we've had to come back and set up the table.
Three 3-hour sessions.
3-hour sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that wasn't just because of the horde stuff. It's also people take turns.
Yeah, well,
and,
the more people you've got on the table, the longer it's going to take each turn around. Be mindful if you are running a horde. Your whole session is going to be eaten up by time of, your 4, 5, 6 players, 7 players, however big your party is, having their turn, and then that horde having their turn.
Yeah.
The larger you go, the more time it's going to eat. Anything up to, we've seen, about an hour per turn. So I have my turn, it takes an hour for it to go around the table, everything else in the horde have their go, and then it's my go again. You try and keep someone's concentration as to what they're doing for an hour, you can end up with Jacob and I having a side conversation while we wait for, everyone else on the table. So
But sometimes those encounters are enjoyable. If it is a siege, for example, that is probably the best example of a horde encounter. Where you're just on the wall and you're waiting for the troops to move forward before you start doing your turn.
Yeah, it has some great heroic moments. It has its time and place, but just remember,
It has its moments, but try not to have it
every session.
nearly every session, or to be a common thing, because people can only remember the next turn for so long.
Yep.
If it takes an hour to get to their turn, they're gonna slow down combat further by asking, "All right, it's been an hour. I've forgotten everything. Bring me up to speed. Who's moved? What's happened? Can I do this?" Because they've forgotten everything they planned.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I had concentration on that guy over there.
Where is he now?
Where is he now? There's
Yeah. So it certainly helps to break it up into smaller bite pieces, but it doesn't have. Not every encounter has to be that large.
Yeah.
And that's the same with the solo. The solo fights are really good. They will, depending on who they're fighting against, but it can be, if you're always just one, 4v1, 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 it becomes monotonous. People know exactly what's coming, what they're doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt to throw the mix of encounters in.
Just one thing to help spice it up. Certain creatures will have rules on how they move, whether it's with groups or solo. Goblins, they like to move in groups.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're very weak, but together they are strong. There are going to be monsters that do that.
Yeah.
Or there are going to be some creatures that only move with one other, and that's its mate. So
yeah, I think orcs like that. Yeah, they're very 2x2 kind of philosophy.
They also have their clan.
Yeah.
Read your creature description. like reading, I mean, you might just flip through and go, yeah, cool, that one looks cool, I'm going to use that in this session. That's all well and good, but reading the actual description of your creature will tell you what terrain it likes to be in, you know, what its aggressive nature is, what triggers it, you know, is it a group fighter, will it call on the aid of other people. The description of your monster should help guide you as to whether it would work with a group, whether it would work alone, the terrain setting you'd put it in, but most importantly, whether it's going to call for help or whether it's going to stay solo.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
One thing to add on to that, some creatures you might look at and think, that probably wouldn't go well with some other creatures of like that may come across as like an opposite.
Yeah.
But if you read the description, it will change your idea of the monster itself, or you might modify it a bit, and you can suddenly put it with so many other creatures that it normally might not be able to.
Yeah.
So you can even further spice it up by that way.
And like your horde, you don't have to think of a horde as in shambling zombies or military. I mean, you can have a horde of sturge.
Yeah.
They're going through the forest, you run into a nest of sturge. Now they're like a little flying creature, latch on, suck your blood,
fire off.
Yeah, they get like 5 hit points off you and then they drop off and leave. You got a whole horde of things trying to get 5 hit points off you. That's a big lot of trouble. You know, fireballs will get rid of a few, but it opens up a whole different dynamic with these CR quarter creatures that are, you know, now hunting you and following you and jumping tree to tree, and from 1 in the tree it's now 6, from 6 in the tree it's now 10, there's now 12, and now they're all around you and you're attacked by a horde of sturge. Really simple creatures. They don't do a lot of damage, but you get a horde of them. It's trouble. Think of it like one ant trying to pick something up. You get a whole colony, they can move mountains. So don't be afraid to
chuck low CR.
Chuck low CR and pump them out.
If you're worried about killing your party, next we'll be talking about party composition. So we'll cover the idea, what would be ideal, or like what would be good to keep in mind when throwing those kind of creatures at your party. And whether a minor weakness might be fully exploited by you unintentionally.
Yeah, I mean, in any combat scenario, you as the DM should never be setting out to
kill your party.
You're if as a DM, this is a little bit sidetracked, but as a DM, my job is to give my party entertainment. If I'm setting out to kill Joe every session, Joey doesn't want to come. We've seen that quite a few times where the DM is setting to kill the party and the party have to survive every time. It's hard. It's
mentally exhausting.
Well, he controls the world. Like the DM controls the world, and what can you do against pretty much the creator?
Yeah, exactly.
If the world's quite literally out to get you, there is nothing you can do.
So just be mindful. If you're a DM, you're there to give your players fun. It's good to have encounters that are going to nearly kill your party, but just remember where to rein it in. You know, you're there for their enjoyment. If they're walking away going, well, bloody hell, again, you know, all we've done is fight. Unless at the very beginning in your 0 session you say, I am going to try and kill you. Your job in this campaign is survive. How long you do, that's up to you, but I have a whole list of terrors coming your way. Enjoy my session. If you don't like what I'm talking about, the door's there because I've got 10 people lined up to come in to die. If that's your DM, then power to them, power to you to want to stick to that. 0 session should cover what kind of things you're into, but your DM should never just be looking to kill you. It's meant to be a fun environment. It's meant to be, you know, social. It's meant to be combat. It's meant to be a bit of everything.
There are encounters that are pretty much aimed to TPK, but those are greater creatures that you would experience at like level 18, 16.
Is it the end campaign boss?
And
this is this the final climax?
Like ancient dragons, they're not gonna pull punches. They're going to
with creatures like that, it's kind of hard not to try and kill your party because they're so powerful.
And by then they should have the items. And it's at that point in your campaign where you're getting near the end boss and you are, you know, 1 or 2 encounters before the end that you should be saying, and I've said to my players after you hit level 8, I'm pulling all stops out. I'm now going to be not pulling any punches. You know, your rest will be short. Like I've said, I'm picking the pace up. Your DM should be open with you, but expect the higher level you get, the harder it's going to be. That's with any game. You know. that's D&D's the same.
Yeah.
A bit off topic from solo versus horde, but you know,
Need to
party
be said,
composition. Yeah, it does.